This episode of the Leap Forward podcast is brought to you by Bridge LT, leaders in conversational learning and innovation. Through AI role plays, technical simulators, and comprehensive training programs, Bridge LT is revolutionizing the future of corporate and enterprise education.
Today on Leap Forward, we're joined by JV, CEO of Carwow, who shares the incredible journey of building the world's most popular car review platform. With 10 million YouTube subscribers and 1.9 billion video views annually, JV dives into how Carwow bridges content and commerce, helping consumers navigate car purchases while empowering dealers with data-driven insights. He discusses trends like AI-powered auctions, retail media, and the future of omnichannel car buying. A must-listen for anyone in automotive tech or digital marketplaces. So I'm absolutely delighted to invite JV onto the Leap Forward podcast. JV, welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
I'm so excited about this and hearing more about the incredible business you've built, Carwow.
Thank you so much. Well, no, I'm looking forward. It should be a good hour or so.
So come on, introduce the business. Really, I suppose, in a sense, why do you exist? What kind of fundamental kind of problem do you solve?
Yeah, I think when we think about the Carwow business, we actually think about it through two different lenses. So if we, first of all, focus on consumers, we believe that there is no credible place on the internet that really helps consumers figure out the entire car-changing destination. So if you think about going to Google, it's kind of helpful if you know what car to buy. But ultimately, if you're going through a life-changing event, maybe you're having children, it's often a great example that you need to buy a new car because your family circumstances are changing. There are very few destinations on planet Earth that help you with the complexity of figuring out everything that it's involved with car changing. So we actually now operate the world's most popular car review YouTube channel. About 3 weeks ago, we passed 10 million subscribers. And last year we did around 1.9 billion video views across our social channels, 1.1 billion on YouTube alone. And that's more than some TV stations in the UK. And we invest in content because we want to be helpful, help consumers discover all of the amazing options that are available to them when they think about changing cars. And that's really important, that we are seen by millions of people ultimately as the start point to go to when they change car. If you think about travel as a comparable vertical to some degree, if you go back 20 years, people used to go to high street stores to book their summer holiday, and there are very few of those left, in part because discovery was poor.
Yep.
You go in and ask, well, where can I go? And you maybe get a few recommendations around Spain or Greece. Then people started to use Google, helped expand horizons perhaps, but it's ultimately Airbnb, it's Booking.com, it's the marketplace businesses that have driven real discovery, but then connect you with real experts in a particular location. In Airbnb's case, a host. We see the same parallel in the car space, in that we are not experts in every single car. We review them, we help people understand the benefits of a particular car so they can put it on their shortlist. It's our car dealer partners that are the experts. And so ultimately, as more and more people go online, they're starting that journey typically online rather than in the high street. It's my job to help them really discover all of the options that are out there, but then get them back into car dealerships. We believe in very much an omni-channel universe where online and all of those amazing showrooms work in tandem together. And so we help consumers discover, we help them make good choices, and we provide a huge amount of volume of new customers for our car dealer partners, but also the car manufacturers as well, who increasingly now are significant partners for us. And
obviously you've been on an incredible journey, and I'm going to ask you to tell me a little bit about that journey in a minute. But just before we do that, kind of give me, the YouTube stats, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Give me a sense of the size and scale of the business as it is today.
Yeah, the business has grown hugely over the last 3 years or so. So last year, in revenue terms, we hit 85 million of revenue, so growing 55%. If you just went back 2 years, we were turning over 40 million. So we've more than doubled the business in the last 2 years. We're 650 people now across the UK, Germany, and Spain, where we operate. We also have a huge operations centre in Portugal. It's really cool, on the beach in Porto. So the business has grown massively in size. And if we just look at the UK market as an example, about 9 million people change car every year. We see most of those people across either YouTube, across Auto Express, which we now own, across Evo, our written content titles, and across our sites. So last year we hit around 250 million visits across all of our websites in the UK, which just huge amounts of reach.
So give us the origin story. How did it all begin?
Well, I'm lucky enough, actually. I'm not the founder of our business. James Hind is our founder. And I think an amazing story that he came back from uni. I think he went skiing for a year and came back to the UK. He was trying to figure out what on earth to do. He always had an interest in cars, and he started to write a blog online, basically reviewing cars. And quite a few of those, the people reading his blog would say, James, where can this car's really looks great. I never knew anything about it. Thanks so much for your help. But where can I buy the car from? And he would introduce those readers to different car dealers he'd met who would give him a little bit of commission for the introduction. He thought, actually, this is really interesting that when you think about car changing, for those, even if they don't like cars, they spend a lot of time researching. And it's not all about price, actually. It's actually, is this car the right thing for me? Whether that be a set of practical reasons or perhaps more emotional reasons about, what is the thing that I want to sort of be seen in, that, I have an emotional connection with. And so he quite quickly figured out that there was a connection between content and commerce, perhaps more so than any other category on earth to some degree, given how much research consumers actually do. So he went and met our CTO, David Santoro, who basically built what is now our car configurator. So you can come onto the site, pretty much configure any car that's available either in the UK, Germany, and Spain. Once you've done that, you then start to receive offers from our dealer partners, and you can choose the one that you want to buy from. And typically, that's a combination of the competitiveness of the offer, location, and also their star ratings. And the business got off to a booming start, really. We raised quite a lot of capital from various VCs across Europe. And I think it's fair to say when people think about buying a new car, they think about coming to Carwow. The business has changed quite radically over the last 3 years, though, because we want to help all of those people that are using us to do more of their car changing on our platform. So in 21, we also launched our Sell My Car service. This is the fastest growing service on the platform and allows dealers, basically our dealer partners, to buy cars on our platform from our users via an online auction. So if you wanted to sell your car today, you take some pictures using our app, fill in a condition report. We do a lot of AI to inspect the car, look for damage, look for any problems with it. Then every day between 8 o'clock and 8:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon, we run an online auction. Dealers can log in, bid on the cars that they like. Whoever places the highest bid wins the car, and they can go and collect it from the consumer or use. We also have now a transport service. We can go and get it for them, and it's highly efficient. Is ultimately now, I suppose, if you look in this space, there's a third way, if you like, that dealers rather can replenish their forecourt. I suppose Motorway and Carwow are the two sort of main players in that space, and that business has grown hugely, and we're really proud of what we've done in that space, because in effect we're leveraging the audience we already have. We have millions of people looking to buy cars. Well, if you're buying a new car, chances are you've got one to sell. So how can we put those cars in front of our dealer partners and give them more choice to fill up their forecourt?
And where do you fit in? What was your connection and journey to get to here?
Oh God! So I've spent most of, despite my youthful glow, I've worked. It's actually my 30 years working this year, and so I've worked in the technology space all my life. Actually, I finished uni in 95, and my university called me up and said, we're looking for a marketing graduate to come and build our first ever website, which shows how old I am. The uni were really keen to attract students internationally. And I had been on the internet a couple of times. And I said, yeah, I've been on the internet. So I managed to sort of somehow get this job, which I think is a little bit of luck, being in the right place at the right time. And they taught me to code. And I suppose it was an amazing catalyst, actually, just to say slightly ahead of the curve in terms of trying to figure out what was next in the online space. So I've been pretty lucky. I've had roles working for Apple, for Dell. I worked at Skype, then Expedia, which is obviously a marketplace similar to Carwow, but in the travel space. And I worked for a big European scale-up called Farfetch, which we IPO'd back in 2019.
Wow.
Some amazing, some fun times, I suppose, pretty cool places to work. But so I used to work in fashion, and as you can tell, I'm not particularly fashionable, but I love cars. So to work in the technology space within the car industry is a dream come true for me.
The dream duo.
Yeah, I was like so lucky. Yeah.
And along that way, you've also sort of been sort of looking at other sort of ways of growing as well. You've sort of undertaken, and you mentioned a couple of the brands that you sort of within the portfolio. Tell us more about kind of the group and some of the acquisitions you've done over this time, and sort of how you plan to leverage those brands.
Yeah. I think the biggest one is our acquisition of Autovia, which was the holding company for Auto Express and Evo. And this really reflects our absolute commitment and belief that content is really, really important as more and more people go online to start to figure out which car to buy. So you can watch our reviews on YouTube. But if you prefer reading content, then obviously Auto Express is one of the most important news titles in the UK. And we've spent the last 9 months or so connecting many of our commerce products to the content. So if you're reading a review of the new of the MG4, you can actually read the review. You can find out what our journalists think of the car, what's the pros and cons, and you can go right ahead and configure a brand new one, or even look for a used car straight from the article. And again, this really focuses, it's my job when I think about my commitment to our dealer partners and to our OEM partners, it's my job to get them back into dealerships. And we do that through content. So these were deeply strategic investments, and again, a reflection of our love for connecting content and commerce together.
And that's a really interesting kind of point of differentiation. And I suppose from that, you back to the size and scale sort of point earlier, you must be sort of harnessing, and having access to a huge amount of data.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about sort of how you're kind of leveraging that.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think there's so much more we could do with the data. Yeah. And certainly when I talk to partners, they're always intrigued in terms of what do we know and how can we use that data. And that is a big, big focus for us. So last year, we raised our Series E VC raise from US VC called Bessemer Venture Partners. And a large proportion of that investment is going into building new products and technologies, in part to use that data so that our partners and our consumers can use it to make better decisions. So when we think about, if you think about the car buying process, I can see if you think, because we operate on the sell side and the buy side, I can see which brands are potentially losing customers and which brands are gaining customers. So every day we have, last year actually, if you look at our Sell My Car business, there's about 9 million people changed car last year. 3 million of them valued their car on our platform. So you type your reg plate in. We obviously know what they're driving. Now, we wouldn't sell that information. That's personal information to the consumer. But I can see, actually, a large proportion of Mercedes drivers at the moment are configuring Audi A6s, or potentially they're looking at some of the new Chinese entrants or Tesla, etc. We can see what's actually happening in the market. And that is quite a unique view. And we want to be able to surface that data so our partners can make better decisions about, who should we target? Again, how do we sort of price vehicles? Often manufacturers are quite surprised actually who they are really competing with. Often they're quite different, different brands to the ones that you would think,
Right.
particularly on the new car side, where our consumers are configuring on average 8 cars, and the makeup of their basket is all typically not what you would expect in terms of the brands they're trying. It's really quite interesting.
And just building on that, I think it'd be really interesting to kind of get your perspective on the back of all of that kind of insight that you've got. Kind of give me a sense of kind of context of where is the industry right now, would you say? Kind of what market forces are at play. Set some kind of context for me.
Yeah. I think from a data perspective, probably I've been in this space now for 4.5 years. And I think if you look at the industry's appetite to use data to make better decisions and to build better products and services for consumers, there's been a radical shift, I think. I think certainly if we look at the Sell My Car business, so when we look at how dealers are determining how much they're prepared to pay for a car, there is clearly a large segment now of buyers that are using a sophisticated set of data points to figure out how much to pay for a car. And they've got a very clear understanding of, if I retail it at this price, this is how long it's going to take to sell.
Wow.
This is how many of these particular types of cars I can have on the forecourt at any particular time. And buying is an absolute skill. It really is. But I think the buyers that have combined that skill, that level of intuition and know-how with data, are doing really, really well. And I love this industry because it's super entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
From the smaller dealers through to somebody working in a large group, and I'm always blown away by so many buyers, young and old, that are figuring out, well, actually, if I can pull different data sources, and I can do a much better job and make the results far more predictable. And that I'm most excited about. And that's why I'm interested in terms of, well, how can we help with that? How can we provide an aggregated view of what's working and what's not?
And I guess the same sort of applies to the consumer, right? In terms of you're informing them, enabling them also kind of to do the same in terms of sophisticated selling.
Yeah. No, on both sides of the equation,
Yeah.
I think. Again, I think consumers are now very au fait with using data-driven products and services to help them make good decisions. And again, when we think about buying a car on our platform, obviously the cost of the car is really important. But what are the other attributes when you think about the sort of total cost of owning it and using it every day? How can we provide more data on that? And what's the car likely to be worth at the point when you plan to sell it? Again, we've got so much data on the platform, we can help them make better decisions.
And that real sense of trust that you bring, I suppose, in a sense, that confidence that they have in the ability that they're either able to kind of sell at the right price or buy at the right price, that must kind of be a real driver for your success and your growth.
Yeah, it's interesting. I suppose by my trade, if you like, over the course of my career has been a marketeer. And I've always been transfixed by how do you build a brand through content. I've always wanted to try and do it. And it's so hard to do. Very few brands have actually done it. But the biggest benefit for us, if you think about our presence on YouTube, we run drag races, which are not particularly useful for most people in terms of figuring out which car to buy. Maybe for a select group. And then we run car reviews, which are really, really useful. Now, the drag races drive awareness. They keep us top of mind. They're entertaining. They're funny. They absolutely bring the spirit of Carwow to life. But what I love the most is that people trust us because, if you think about the building a brand, obviously you want consumers to have a level of awareness, who you are, why you exist, how you can help them. But the pinnacle of building a brand is that they trust you. They seek you out because they trust your point of view and opinion. And I think what Carwow has built, and ultimately this goes back to James's original vision, we've invested so much into content that when people are thinking about changing a car, they come to us because in part they know, we're independent. We don't own any cars. We have a brilliant dealer network, and it's our job to connect you up to the right partner. But also, Matt has this point actually when we talk about reviewing cars that compared to the 1980s, there are no bad cars really anymore. It's not like you buy something and fall apart. Pretty much every car is a good car. Actually, the job for us is figuring out what are the really interesting features of a car. Maybe what are the slightly more irritating features that for some may be more of a problem, for others less of an issue. And I think we do that really well. But people really trust us, and they trust our brand, and that I think is really hard to do. And it is in part the reason I joined the business. I thought actually this is marketplace businesses always perform really well because you provide breadth of choice. But Carwow has built something quite unique in that it's, I think most CMOs would give their sort of right arm to build a brand through content rather than spending 30-40 million pounds a year on TV and radio advertising. It's a much more interesting and innovative approach.
And absolutely of our times, right? Absolutely. Yeah, it's and to have iconic brands like Auto Express and Evo as well within the family that people identify gives you even greater kind of authority and so on. When you're thinking about that kind of connection between content and commerce, how are you adapting that? As we see a continued kind of shift in other kind of social kind of content kind of marketing and media channels.
Yeah, I mean, we have obviously done particularly well on YouTube. We do really well in short form now as well, particularly across TikTok and Insta. So whenever we're running whenever we're doing any shoots, where the team are constantly thinking about what's the long form opportunity and what's the angle from a short form perspective as well. So we've got two different teams that are on the shoot trying to figure out how to optimize for those different formats. I think the thing that we're really excited about is, again, combining the data and the content together and using AI to try and connect particularly video to actually getting a car. So if you're watching the video at the moment, you've got to come into the site, you've got to configure the car. Can we actually short circuit some of that? So you can actually
commerce through the content.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
love it.
And we think it's relatively easy to do that in a written space. But again, often that's just linking, connecting various parts of our capability together. But there's definitely interesting ways, I think, of making that a far slicker process. So one thing we've actually launched, it was called Matt GPT. It's now called Ask Matt. So if you're watching a car review video, hopefully we've answered lots of your questions about the car through the content, but most people will have some other specific questions they may want to dig into. So you can now come across Carwow, go to Ask Matt. It's using OpenAI, so ChatGPT is the basis for the AI, and you can ask it any question about a review that you've actually watched on our channel. It'll also start to make recommendations for cars. So if you're interested in a Toyota Yaris, you've watched the video, but actually you don't want to buy a brand new one, you want a used one, well, tell us a little bit more about your needs. So if you're not too bothered about the size of the engine or the performance, actually you're after a really good deal, you live in Glasgow, then the AI will start to narrow down all of the choices that we have on the network for you. And that we are really excited about, because ultimately, if you look at particularly used car buying online, it's not really moved on, particularly in the last 2 decades. There's lots of most classified sites, there's pictures of cars with descriptions. Our perspective is, well, we operate the world's most popular YouTube channel. How do you better connect that together so the content and the technology are working together to create more interesting experiences that take away a lot of the browsing and the searching? How do we sort of try and find the right things for you really quickly?
That's interesting. So speed is obviously a really important kind of metric. When you look at sort of measuring kind of performance across the business, what are your kind of go-to kind of metrics?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first thing I obsess with every day is traffic.
Yeah.
Go back. We're here to provide dealers and OEM partners with visibility. So I spent a lot of time looking at how many people we're actually engaging with across the entire platform. The second thing for me then is just looking at the commerce transactions. How many people are configuring cars? How many people look at used cars? How many cars do we have in the auction today? Again, because our partners want breadth of choice. Our customers want breadth of choice. And those are that's the lifeblood of our business ultimately.
Yeah.
That's why we get out of bed every day. So those are beyond the financial metrics are the data points that I look at on a day-to-day basis.
And that content to commerce kind of conversion rate, is that something that
yeah. And ultimately, that's why we're investing so much into technology and the product teams to really move the needle there.
Yeah.
And that's if you speak to anybody at Carwow, those are the metrics that we typically
obsessed
spend.
by.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about sort of how you drive innovation through the business, because obviously you've got this wealth of data, right?
Yeah.
So how do you like to kind of set that up?
Yeah, and it's we have quite different approaches to some degree. So obviously we absolutely use all of the data on the platform to feed ideas, typically hypotheses. So if we observe that we tried something, we saw an improvement in conversion, or potentially we saw a degradation, we will use that as a hypothesis to fuel new product features and ideas, which I think is great. I suppose I've worked in lots of technology companies. I think there's a danger if that is all you do, your product strategy becomes, I suppose, somewhat soulless to some degree. Just following the data, and big ideas tend to be sort of pushed to the bottom of the queue because people go for safety through the data rather than experimentation and taking some risks. So we absolutely have a focus on using the data, but I really challenge the team to generate new ideas, to take risks. And in part, that's the benefit of running a marketplace. I suppose if I was a dealer partner and let's say I make a business plan to open a new showroom, let's say that costs me £5 million. If I mess that decision up, it has major implications, and there's a huge building, there's a huge capital asset there. Whereas I could try something, and if it doesn't work, I lose time. But it's not like I've built a capital project. I can try something for a quarter, even if it's a way out idea, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, I've lost some time and I've learned something. And so I really put a balance on, let's use the data to find those no-brainer optimizations, but let's also use the fact that we're a capital-light business. The business isn't going to fall apart if we take some risks, as long as they're not, they're well thought through and we've a high level of conviction in it. Then let's try it. And so we have some quite different approaches, which are really important. And again, our partners expect us to innovate and try new things rather than just chase the data solely.
And so you said sort of 450 or so sort of size. How have you kind of structured the business?
Yeah, so actually it was 650 people now.
650, I apologise.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I find it quite sad that sometimes I don't know everybody. I can't remember everybody's name now, Justin, but anyway. So we're actually aligned. We used to be aligned around countries. So we would have a central product and technology organisation that would serve all three markets, so UK, Germany and Spain. About 2 years ago, we moved away from that actually to become a more global organisation. And we're now organised by product. And our three core products are Sell My Car, so the dealer to consumer business. That's run by somebody called Sally Futz, who's amazing. She runs that division. And within it, she has all of the functions she needs to run that business autonomously.
Wow. Okay.
Autonomously, rather. So she has a product team, her own engineers, her own sales team, account management team. And that what is really important is that we are optimized for growth and for pace, speed of change. We then have a Get Your Car team, so they look after dealers selling to consumers, both on new car, leasing, and on used car now, which is a big area of focus for us, new investment area. And then we have our third area, which is a media business. So we run a retail media business. Actually work with about 46 rather of the OEMs across Europe. are now spending with us on retail media across both Carwow, Auto Express, and the other Autovia brands. Again, and these are data-driven retail media products. So if you're Mercedes, we saw yesterday that 1,000 customers have valued their Mercedes car. Well, that's a clear indicator that they're starting the process of changing car.
Right.
And actually, a quarter of them have configured BMWs. So what do you want to do about that? Well, we have an ad product. You can target particular customer segments to try and protect those customers and keep them in a Mercedes. Or if you're if you're MG and you're a new entrant into them, well, MG is not really a new entrant now, but if you want to target a particular segment, you can do that on our platform. And so we have again a completely different business unit working on retail media. So as Amazon have their retail media business sat on the marketplace with sponsored ads, we have the same thing. And our business actually went from turning over about 2 million in 21 to over 21 million last year. It's a huge part of our business now.
Hugely powerful, hugely valuable. I love it. And so you're in 3 markets right now.
Yeah.
So first question is sort of around, what have you seen as the sort of the market sort of nuances of those? Tell me a little bit about that.
So I think the UK and Germany are obviously super interesting markets.
Yeah.
Many similarities, both in terms of size and scale. They skew premium, heavily dependent on finance as well. So the replacement cycles are very, very predictable. I think the bigger change ultimately is if you look at the UK on the dealer side, there's been a lot more consolidation. There are fewer dealerships compared to Germany, where there's a lot more fragmentation, a lot of small family dealers. And so the way we work has changed quite significantly. Many of the groups in the UK, I talk to our team about building enterprise product for our partners. And many of the groups in the UK have... they demand the same level that an OEM would now. They are very sophisticated. They're very good marketeers, many of them, and they spend a lot at scale. And we've had to invest significantly over the last 3 years to make sure that the services and the capability of the platform really deliver to those enterprise requirements. And so that's probably the biggest difference in the UK, that the consolidation is, in a good way, it keeps us on our toes, because these are sophisticated partners. I mean, they're very, very good retailers. And so that's probably the biggest change. Not to say that the partners in Germany it's just less scale. And that demands, I suppose, a different approach in terms of how you work and manage those partners.
And then from a consumer side, what differences do you notice there in terms of behaviours and so forth?
Yeah, good question. I think on the it's interesting actually. We see quite a similar mix in terms of cars configured in both markets. Yeah. Again, skews very premium, and the UK buyer tends to configure a more eclectic mix of cars. So you tend to see a UK buyer start with premium, so BMW, Audi. They will then add other more mainstream brands into the mix, and they will oscillate between multiple brands. Whereas the German customer tends to have a sort of clearer idea on what they want from day one, and will be more likely to buy that car. It's very rare in the UK that customers buy the first car they configured, which I think demonstrates the level of discovery on the platform. But yeah, I think you can see that customers take, we call it the messy middle, that consumers in the UK definitely go through, a more sort of interesting process, I think, to get to the final outcome.
And as a marketeer, I've got to ask you about sort of how you like to kind of structure your marketing team. So obviously, as you said, kind of content and commerce together, but tell me a little bit about how you kind of like to org that up. Yeah,
it's a good question. So the content organization sits completely independently, which is run by Matt. So if he's not making videos, he's got a huge organization now, more than 65 writers and producers in the team. It's a ginormous, it's a massive investment. So he's super, super busy. We then have a centralized global marketing team, predominantly spends on performance marketing, and it is very audience focused. Our focus is trying to use the data we have to find people that we know are in market. They're either moving into market, so the beginning of the process, and we are very good at finding those people, right through to those that are a lower funnel. How can we make sure that they're using our product, and we can introduce them to dealer partners as quickly as possible? And so if you look at our marketing team, there is a healthy balance, I suppose, between phenomenal practitioners in terms of paid search, SEO, a big focus on analytics and data, and also creative as well. So we're trying to big focus on how do we pull the content into not just the site experience, but also into marketing as well. So if we're running a partnership on our third-party site, again, we're trying to use the content to sort of create that continuity of message and experience.
And what have you noticed in terms of discovery and general behavior when it comes to kind of demographics? What's the kind of the channel mix now in terms of, obviously you've really got that sort of beautiful kind of cornerstone or whatever you want to kind of call it of YouTube, but what about those other kind of social channels, the Snaps and TikToks and the like? How have you kind of adapted that strategy to meet different types of audience, I suppose?
So TikTok is huge for us actually in terms of short form, as is in Instagram actually. And to your point, ultimately our focus is there are 9 million people changing car this year. We want to see all of them. And therefore, to your point, we have to go where that audience are and how are they thinking. Ultimately, when we think about Gen AI as well, what are we doing in that space to make sure that if somebody's using ChatGPT to figure out what car to buy, they have access to our content. So we have very different. We have a clear understanding of who's on which platform, and ultimately we're shaping the content and the messaging to suit that audience. But if you think about what we're doing on TikTok, YouTube, across Auto Express, Evo, and Carwow, we have a very broad proposition that does, by and large, suit pretty much all segments of the car changing population, and that's something we've built very deliberately ultimately, and we're excited about doing more of that as well. I mean, Evo is amazing in terms of targeting those premium, those really high end consumers that have a couple of $100K worth of cars in their garage. They're really hard to reach, and again, we understand that audience really well now through those content investments.
That's a really smart investment from the outside. And let's talk about the people for a little bit. Let's talk about skills. Let's talk about kind of like the type of culture you're kind of building. I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh God, yeah, it's a great question. I suppose as a CEO, I suppose ultimately it's my job to build an amazing culture and hire truly exceptional people. I suppose ultimately as a CEO you are a people manager first and foremost. That's the thing that you really have to get right. And for me, it's interesting that people see scale up businesses, or we're not really a startup now. We're a scale up, and they definitely have this sort of glamorous and exciting sort of facade, I suppose. And I think they are genuinely exciting places to work, but it's also really, really hard work. It's not for the faint-hearted. It really isn't. And finding people that have that, I suppose that ability to thrive in an environment that's constantly changing, that's full of ambiguity, is really challenging actually. But if you find those people and you put them together, it just creates a tremendous buzz and an excitement. Because the thing I love about our business is we talk about it being capital light. We don't own any cars. The benefit is that we can try things really quickly, and so the culture that I'm trying to build is one where we take calculated risks. We act like entrepreneurs. We have a level. We give the team autonomy to try things. We don't. We don't hold court if people make mistakes. If they keep repeating them, of course we would. But we want people to have a little bit of latitude to try things, have a level of autonomy and to experiment on our platform. Because ultimately, if you think about it, the opportunity is we have this massive audience. If we can figure out what they're interested in, or how we move that conversion rate ever so slightly through trying something completely new, has a massive downstream impact on our financials. So we are building a culture where the teams have a level of autonomy. They genuinely feel like owners. Before that comes the fact that it can be quite chaotic at times. If our business isn't hitting its numbers by Wednesday, well, we can quickly change course, and we should. That is the benefit of a capital light business. But it's easy to say that, but actually to operate in that environment is at times challenging. It's exciting, and it's amazing when we're not hitting some of our numbers, and we take a slightly different course, and you do start to hit them. You think, this is amazing, but sometimes we don't, and so the resilience, the autonomy is important. And my view is, I want to bring people into the business that aren't babysitting something that somebody else has created. We've doubled the size of the business in the last year, and that's because so many of the team have created, new strategies, new products, new initiatives that literally didn't exist 2 years ago, and they feel a sense of ownership and passion and real belief and conviction in those things. And I think as a manager of people, giving them that opportunity is pretty immense. And so that for me is, how do you explain the opportunity of working in a scale up? Yes, there are some challenges to it, but if you enjoy ownership, if you enjoy, really challenging yourself and others, it's a pretty amazing place to be.
And how do you look to sort of maintain that? Because as you said, a lot of this conversation has been about speed and pace and scale, and I love the points you're making around sort of autonomy. I think that's such a great environment to kind of thrive in, I suppose, in a sense. How do you sort of maintain that as a leader?
I think ultimately you have to have conviction in what you're doing, and I think over time that builds as you try things. Some just don't work. Often most of my ideas don't work, but there's a level of resilience now that I think across the business we will find things that work, that resonate. We have just this amazing opportunity to leverage this platform and do so much more with it. And so I talk to the team often about the sort of highs and lows of scale up. I suppose if you work in a ginormous corporation, probably there aren't that many highs and lows. It's more sort of consistent and sustainable. And I think for many people that's good.
Yeah.
I suppose for us we have huge highs, but when things go wrong, they're quite really deep lows. And I suppose I've just got so much energy for the business, but ultimately it's when you hit the lows that you really need the energy. Everybody's excited at the top. It's fine. We're all jumping around and being happy, and but ultimately it's digging deep when you hit the troughs and projecting that energy and sort of shared conviction to start to build your way back out of it. If you're building a business that's growing, you should expect these big highs and big lows. And to me, that is one of the biggest aspects of leadership. It's providing the direction, but also helping the teams understand, right, okay, this is how we sort of build back, and we keep our collective energy and conviction in what we're doing really high. Even if we hit a few roadblocks along the way, we should expect that. That's if it was easy, everybody would be trying to grow businesses from a fast pace. It's not easy, but it is hugely rewarding if you can figure out how to get around the problems.
So looking forward then, obviously growing at an incredible pace. What does the future hold for Carwow?
Yeah, it's a great question. We feel we've still so much work to do in terms of investing in product. The thing that I'm actually most excited about, people often look at me with a slightly gaze face because we talk a lot about what we want to do in the consumer space, but actually the area that Carwow is typically underinvested in is actually partner-facing tools. And that's why I am genuinely so excited. When we think about the Sell My Car business, at the moment, consumers take pictures of their car to upload into the auction. well, there's just so much more we could do there to help the buyers really understand the damage on the car. Potentially using AI to price the damage, provide indicators, you could load in your prep center costs. I'm really excited about trying to crack the transport problem. If you buy 50 cars on our platform today, well, how can we get those cars to you super quickly and really improve the transparency around when those cars are coming? How do you sort of determine or book in when you want those cars to arrive at your prep center? And there's some hard problems to solve there, which from a technology perspective, make us really, really excited. There's another aspect that, connecting the sell my car and get your car experience, again, through technology, I'm really, really excited about. So some of our, we've got some savvy dealers, typically up in the north of England, which they've been buying cars on our platform. So you buy the car in the auction. And typically it takes 5 to 10 days before you actually get the car. So we've launched a service now where, inspired by some of our partners actually, where you can, when the auction closes, you can take the pictures of the car. We use AI to take away any details from the customers, sort of wherever they've taken the car, the sort of garden, etc., the driveway. We superimpose the dealer background, and then we can put that onto our used car site, so the dealer to consumer site, and start to retail that car before they've actually collected it. And only Carwow can do this. It's because we connect the sell side and the buy side together. Which again, if you think about dealer partners, we're using technology to help them speed up the turn on the car. And there are so many examples like that where we're just using the engagement on the platform to speed up and I suppose create some differentiated products for partners. And those are the things that get me really excited. And if I'm honest, we're playing a bit of catch up against many of the best in class partners, but I think we can make some good headway there.
JV, you've inspired me.
You're too kind, sir.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining Leap Forward today.
No, thank you so much. It's nice to meet you. And thanks so much.